Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Josh Schwadron. How are you, Josh?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, my
Yeah.
friend. Joshua is the founder and CEO of Mighty, one of the most exciting legal startups that has raised 15 million to reinvent the personal injury industry by putting injured people first. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on the show. I have a sweet spot with the personal injury. I was in that business before we had a medical facility. So we were dealing with law firms. And so I know I would love to learn more about what you do exactly. Are you a lawyer yourself?
I am a lawyer, but I no longer practice. And I'm more on the business, tech, infrastructure side. I'm a non practicing lawyer.
Or when did this happen? When did you stop?
My passions always were much broader than just the law. And after law school, I worked as a lawyer for a few years on and off to pay the bills. But I've always been more business minded and
So,
haven't actually practiced heavily for almost a decade.
oh, okay. That makes sense. So I'm excited to learn more about this. Is this a platform, a technology?
So Mighty is a technology platform, but we are affiliated with Mighty Law, which is a personal injury law firm that's unlike any personal injury law firm that exists today. In that
Okay.
the lawyers in Mighty Law have agreed to practice, have a code of ethics that is better and different than the kind of tens of thousands of local law firms around the country. And one of the things I should note is that I don't have any ownership. Mighty doesn't have any ownership in Mighty Law, and no one at Mighty Law has any ownership in Mighty, and they're unaffiliated in that way. But they are. But we work closely in order to deliver consumers who have been in an accident a superior experience to anything that exists today.
So that's the platform. It provides a better experience for the injured.
Yeah, if one of my best friends got in an accident and they asked me what to do, I would tell them in a heartbeat that they should call Mighty because Mighty helps them not only get a fair legal settlement through Mighty Law, but also helps them holistically with things like getting treatment and making sure that it's paid for, helping them get financing if they can't pay the bills while they're waiting for their case to settle, help with things like mental health. There's a lot of needs that people have after an accident. And one of the things that we saw with law firms is that just focusing on the legal aspect wasn't enough.
Can you just walk us through what is the experience? Like, what are we looking at here?
So the experience for the consumer is somebody gets in an accident and they call us, and we provide the same sorts of services as a personal injury lawyer may, but we also have far more services that we give the consumer
All round.
or for less money than traditional personal injury law firms charge, and with a far more ethical and aligned model where we've taken some of the bad incentives that personal injury lawyers have, and we've flipped them on their head to ensure that Mighty and Mighty Law lawyers have incentives that are far more aligned with their clients than traditional personal injury lawyers today that you might see on the billboards, for example.
So if someone gets in an accident, for example, they Google to get help, basically.
Yep.
And because your name is with, similar to the number one personal injury law firm, you basically kind of show up in Google as well. For example, Mighty, right? Mighty Law and then Mighty your platform. That's a big benefit as well, right? Being part of that company.
Yeah. So Mighty Law is our brand, and the Mighty Law lawyers use that in order to market themselves. And that's really valuable for the mighty law lawyers because they know that brand is synonymous with
Yeah.
transparency, putting
Mhm.
clients first. The personal injury industry, as we all know, has a really
Mhm.
bad reputation.
Yeah.
And the truth is that a lot of that bad reputation is well deserved. And so what we're trying to do is create something different that really defies that expectation.
It protects the lawyer side of things, it protects the injured, it protects the insurance company, for example. Everyone, you guys are basically taking on the lead to represent everyone involved.
No, our priority is to represent the consumer first and foremost.
Okay.
That is our customer. That
Uh-huh.
is who we've designed the experience for. And that is, frankly, who needs protecting. The insurance companies can
Yeah.
take care of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
True.
lawyers can take care of
Yeah. So
themselves.
true. Yes.
But the party that, frankly, has been re victimized all over again by the system is the consumer after an accident. And, it's really sad to think about the fact that when people get victimized, you expect that people will come to their aid. But in the personal injury system, too often people get re victimized all over again.
Yeah, some, for example, tow truck drivers and all these other people that come in the middle after someone gets in an accident and advise the wrong direction to injured. It could delay everything. It could their experience of what happened and what kind of, misfortune that happened in the accident. It gets distorted because of all this other stuff that starts happening right around them. So when they come to you, they can feel safe because they're coming to a place that is definitely all there for that consumer and they're there to protect them. So they're making sure the legal side is taking care of them, the insurance side, everything is around that client, correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right. So what you would call these there's a lot of smaller guys, for example, that help people in accidents. I think they call themselves like victim support or accident support consultant. I don't know what kind of names they have, but they actually go to the injured to their house. They support them. They help them with paperwork. They help them which lawyer to call. You would say, but this would be on a much bigger scale, but it's kind of similar to that, right?
So there's a lot of people that when people get injured in accidents, they're often entitled to compensation.
Yeah.
And in aggregate, there's millions of people who are entitled to compensation every year in the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. Whenever you have a part of the economy that yields hundreds of billions of dollars, you have a bunch of repeat players who come in and try and get as much of that money as possible for themselves. And they offer services left and right that,
Yeah.
for example, purport to help people, sound like they're helping people, but in fact, they're hurting people. They're taking part of the
Mm.
pie. What Mighty aims to do is to give the client far more service for less than they
Oh,
pay in
very
the
good.
market today. Um,
Excellent.
and so I think that's really important because those victim advocates that you talk about, they need to get paid somehow. And
Yeah.
they're not getting paid by the lawyer oftentimes. It's important that the consumer pays less people, not more.
Mm.
And we think that's really important. And in,
Yeah,
in
that's
Mighty's model, not only do the consumers pay less to Mighty Law than they do any other traditional law firm, but Mighty, who's providing a bunch of these other services for them, actually gets paid by the law firm. So Mighty doesn't have to actually make any of
get
its money
anything.
consumer themselves. Exactly.
That's excellent. It's that support system, right? That you don't have to worry because the biggest thing that comes with an accident is a lot of worry, right? You don't know what to do, where to go, who to call, what kind of information to gather. And then you meet someone and then they're talking about, getting paid, right? Like it's a wrong timing, right? With you guys, they go in, they're just all they're getting is support. They're not actually getting pitched anything. You know what I mean?
1,000%.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's great. So how did you think of this concept? Obviously, you must have seen it, right, as happening. It's been happening for years that consumers are getting the short side of the these stake because they're not protected at times, right? So it's obvious that is there, the need was there, but is there a story behind it that how you came about creating what you created?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, there's hundreds of stories, but I would
Yeah.
say the most recent and even poignant of them is Mighty, in addition to helping consumers, has created software that makes it more efficient for law firms to work with consumers. And we have thousands of personal injury law firms around the country who use that software. And we've saved lawyers over $100 million in administrative savings, in being able to hire less staff, in other out of pocket costs. And we have a very mission driven team at Mighty who is really excited to save lawyers $100 million, because the presumption was that if the lawyers save money, that will in some ways be passed on to the client through lower prices, through higher service quality, through other means. Because that's what should happen in industries. And that's typically what you learn in economics creates like a perfect market. What we actually found was that the lawyers simply made $100 million more of profit for themselves, and that none of that money was passed on to the consumer
Mm,
themselves. And that was really, tragic for
uncomfortable.
us. I think that realization led us to really say we need to compete with our own customers in order to ensure that there's pressure on the market to compete on factors that matter, like again, price, service quality, and depth. And that's what we're doing today.
Excellent. So can you share with us what you feel your innermost superpower is that got you to this point?
Yeah, I think I'm very reflective, and I constantly think from first principles about why the industry exists in the way it does, how it should work, and how we ourselves are positioning in order to win from a business perspective, but also help consumers from an ethics and morality perspective. And in the course of Mighty, we've had a number of different versions of ourselves, and they've all subsequently been stronger and stronger. And I think that's reflective of my kind of superpower of being thoughtful and open to change as I learn more information.
Very good. And for anyone that is looking to launch or create a technology startup like yourself, like your company, you've been through it already, right? And you're going through it. Is there any kind of recommendation you could share that could make someone's life easier? Some kind of a point that, you know what, if this information was available to someone, this could make their journey a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask you the question back. I think my
Sure.
advice would be different whether they wanted the technology company to be a $10 million technology company or a $10 billion technology company.
10 million. Let's go at 10 million.
Yeah. So I think 10 million would be number one, start doing something immediately that gives you customer feedback. So
Test the market.
yeah, test the market. But I think there's so many ways that you can do that. You can do that even by writing content. You can do
Mhm.
that by selling before you have it. But the more you can get out there early on before you spend a lot of time building, I think that is
Got it.
incredibly valuable. And
Good
for a
one.
$10 million business, you really don't need to solve all of the world's problems. You just need to find a niche that resonates with enough people where you could have a unique solution. So I think there's another one. I think the
Good
final
one.
one, which I think is true both for a 10 million and a $10 billion company, is I think that people are often have big advantages by leveraging something unique about themselves that gives them an unfair advantage.
Mm,
Maybe it's an experience that they had. Maybe it's a family member who is in a business line. Maybe it is a skill that they have. One of my favorite examples that isn't technology is in New York, where we're based. There is a very popular lobster restaurant called Luke's Lobster Shack. And must be a dozen locations around the city. And in learning more about that business, the person's father was a lobster fisherman in Maine and had access to really inexpensive lobster. And he was really smart to have leveraged that relationship to know that he can get the cheapest lobster around. And that person did an amazing job of finding a niche in the market that wasn't being served, which was, not that expensive, fairly fast lobster
Yeah.
rolls anywhere in the city.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Great advice. I like them both. The first point about networking to get your idea out, to see what people are thinking before you start investing and working on the product and develop it. It's a great way to know where you stand, right?
1,000%.
Yeah. And Josh, $15 million, that's a great win to get the investment. Is there any kind of strategy you can share how you were able to, obviously the product speaks for itself, right? But is there anything you could share with the audience that could help them if someone is looking for investment for their idea?
I think being passionate in your pitch and just in general is obvious, but not often done. Um,
Represented, yes.
we are in the personal injury space, which is this like s- sad, very shady space that is not well understood. A lot of inside baseball. But when I meet with investors, they can sense my level of passion, not because they have a sixth sense, because they hear it in my voice, because they see it in my face.
They
And
sense
so,
it too, vibrationally, right?
exactly. And when I see people pitch and it just doesn't feel like they themselves are very into their business, it always strikes me.
Mm,
So I think that's maybe the
good.
simplest piece of advice that people can change.
That's great, Josh. Really grateful to meet you. And I love the idea, love the concept. When I was in the business, I was always thinking how to make things better, how to make things better. But that was the old me. I guess it wasn't able to get the idea going, but it's definitely great space. It needs help. Like you mentioned, there's there's a lot of room for improvement, right? So it's great that I'm glad that you're doing this and I'm hoping to see you scale this. So by the way, the website, what is it called? Is there any kind of extension to it or is it
No, it's just mighty.com. MIGHTY.
mighty.com? Simple.
Yeah, very simple.
That's wicked. That's amazing. That's amazing. Hopefully you didn't have to fight for that URL.
No, I didn't have to fight. I just had to pay
Pay
a fortune.
fortune. Yes. It is a pretty cool name. So,
Thank you.
and thank you again, Josh, for taking the time to come on our show, share your message, share your product. And I would love to see you continue to innovate. And if you come up with something new, reach out to us. We'll love to
Thank you
share the
so much.
message again.
I really
Um,
appreciate it. It was great. It was great,
no
great chatting
problem.
with you. Take care.
No problem. No problem. And audience, again, thank you once again for joining us today. Josh, all his information will be in the show notes. If you get in an accident, and I hope you don't, check these guys out because trust me, was from this field. There is a lot of help that is needed, especially for the consumer. So if these guys are giving you that protection, it's definitely a great place to start and trying to figure things out yourself. So again, thanks again for being part of our show and sharing and helping us grow. Without you guys, we could never do it. You are all super. Thanks again. And Josh, thank you.